The galactic elite's dominance. For countless millennia, the galactic elites ruled over the galaxy with an iron fist. Their empire spanned countless star systems, each one bending to their will. This mighty species, known for their advanced technology and unmatched military strength, had crushed every force that dared to oppose them. No race, no planet, no force in the universe could stand against them. They believed themselves to be the peak of evolution, destined to control everything in their path. Their ships were unlike anything other civilizations had seen. Massive vessels that could easily wipe out entire fleets with a single strike. They had technology that allowed them to manipulate the fabric of reality itself, control time, space, and energy with the flick of a finger. And with this power, they created a vast empire, stretching from one side of the galaxy to the other. The galactic elites were not just conquerors, they were rulers. They established strict laws across every planet they controlled. No one was allowed to question their authority. They were the law. The few who dared defy them were swiftly crushed. Their planets turned to dust. In their eyes, no species could ever be more advanced than them. They were the universe's masters, and their empire was built on the belief that they were the supreme species. Over the centuries, the galactic elites had grown even more arrogant. They believed that no species would ever be able to challenge their rule. Their military might was unmatched, and their intelligence was beyond compare. They had explored countless worlds, studying their inhabitants and sometimes even wiping them out. There were no secrets in the galaxy that they had not uncovered. They had seen it all, controlled it all, and dominated it all. The galactic elites had a unique way of asserting their power. When they arrived on a new planet, they would first establish contact with the ruling species, offering them peace under the condition of absolute submission. The planet's leaders were given a choice: accept the elite's rule or face immediate annihilation. Most chose submission. Those that didn't were destroyed without hesitation. The message was clear: resistance was futile. The few species that dared resist were quickly obliterated, their civilizations crumbling in the face of the galactic elite's might. The elites had perfected the art of warfare, quick, efficient, and devastating. They would wipe out all military forces, disrupt communication networks, and invade the planet's core until the resistance was crushed. And once a planet fell, its inhabitants were either enslaved or eliminated, depending on the galactic elite's whim. There was no mercy for the weak, no forgiveness for those who opposed them. The galaxy was their domain, and they made sure everyone knew it. As the years passed, the galactic elite's empire grew even more expansive. They moved from one system to the next, their power and control stretching farther than any species had ever dreamed possible. They were not content with just ruling planets. They wanted the galaxy to bow before them. Entire star systems fell under their rule, with their ships patrolling every sector. No one dared challenge them. The most notable aspect of the galactic elite's reign was their complete lack of fear. They were fearless because they believed they were invincible. Their weapons, their ships, their technology, everything about them was designed to ensure that no one could ever defeat them. They had mastered the art of war and the science of control. Their enemies had been crushed, their resistance extinguished, and they saw no reason why it should ever be any different. Even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy had fallen to their might. The once great nations that had once stood tall against the elite's advances were now nothing more than shattered remnants, their survivors either enslaved or exiled. The galactic elites ruled over the stars, and they ruled with absolute certainty. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, some whispered stories of a race of beings so powerful that they could challenge even the might of the galactic elites. These whispers were dismissed as fantasy by most, tales spun by those who had no understanding of true power. The galactic elites had seen and conquered everything, and they had no reason to believe that any race, no matter how advanced, could pose a threat to their rule. But the elites were wrong. They could not see what was coming. They could not understand that a new force was rising in the galaxy, one that would challenge everything they believed in. A species that was far more dangerous than they ever imagined. A species with something the elites had never encountered before, something they could not control. This new force was humanity, and they were about to discover that not all empires could last forever. For now, however, the galactic elites were secure in their belief of invincibility. Their empire was vast, and their grip on the galaxy was unshakable. But all empires eventually face challenges, and no matter how powerful the galactic elites thought they were, the future held a surprise they would never see coming. A mysterious signal. The galactic elites were confident in their superiority. For centuries, they had swept through the galaxy like a storm, destroying or absorbing any species that dared challenge their reign. Yet, as they expanded their empire, an unusual anomaly began to show up on their radar systems, a strange signal emanating from the far corner of the galaxy, a region they had previously considered insignificant. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but its origin was puzzling. At first, the elites dismissed it as a glitch, perhaps a malfunction in their sensors. However, the signal grew stronger with each passing day. It carried a distinct pattern, one that didn't match any known communication technology in the galaxy. No species in this remote sector had ever developed anything advanced enough to send such a complex transmission. The elites began to take notice. The signal was coming from a planet called Earth, a small primitive world in the far reaches of space. The leader of the galactic elites, the supreme overlord, ordered an immediate investigation. He could sense something extraordinary about this signal, even if he couldn't understand it. It was a challenge, a message from an unknown source, and to the elites, any challenge was an invitation to test their might. They were eager to prove that no species could rival their power, not even one from a backwater planet. A fleet of ships was dispatched to Earth. The elites expected to find nothing more than a primitive world, perhaps a few scattered settlements, and easily subdued populations. They planned to show the inhabitants of this insignificant planet the might of their empire. Earth was just another stop on their endless campaign of domination. But as the fleet approached the planet, something strange began to happen. Their sensors flickered, and a deep unease began to settle in the minds of the elite commanders. The closer they got to Earth, the stronger the signal became, and it seemed to pulse in a way they had never seen before. The Supreme Overlord, however, dismissed their concerns. He trusted in the superiority of his forces and their advanced technology. Yet, as they entered Earth's atmosphere, the elites were stunned by what they found. The planet was far more developed than they had anticipated. It wasn't just the humans they found strange. It was the entire planet. Earth was home to creatures with an innate resilience, an uncanny resourcefulness, and a spirit that could not easily be broken. The fleet descended onto Earth's surface, and the first contact was made. Expecting to find primitive beings to subjugate, they instead found humans who stood tall and resolute, refusing to bow before their conquerors. These humans, while technologically inferior, had something the galactic elites hadn't anticipated: an unyielding determination and an insatiable drive to protect their world. It became clear that this would not be the easy conquest they had expected. The galactic elite's arrogance quickly turned to confusion and frustration. These humans did not fear them. They didn't cower or beg for mercy. Instead, they fought back, not with advanced weaponry, but with something far more dangerous: human ingenuity and unbreakable will. As the elite's initial attempts to dominate Earth failed, they realized that this was no ordinary planet. Something far greater than they had expected was unfolding before them, and they soon realized the signal they had detected was not just a simple transmission. It was a warning, a challenge from a species that had been underestimated. The galactic elites had unknowingly stepped into a fight that would test the very limits of their power, and it was a fight they were not ready for. First contact. Humans stand tall. As the galactic elites touched down on Earth's surface, their massive ships cast shadows over the land, intimidating and overwhelming. The humans who witnessed the landing were filled with fear and awe, but also a deep sense of defiance. The supreme overlord and his commanders expected the people of Earth to kneel before them, to beg for their mercy. Instead, the humans stood their ground. The first humans to meet the elites were a group of leaders from various nations, scientists, military commanders, and civilians who had come together to form a united front against the unexpected threat. They had no weapons capable of matching the elites' advanced technology, yet they refused to show weakness. Their leaders spoke calmly but firmly to the elites, demanding answers, questioning their right to invade, and most of all, refusing to be intimidated. The supreme overlord, perplexed by this unexpected resistance, ordered his fleet to display their power. A warning shot from one of the massive ships lit up the sky, and a shockwave rattled the ground. The human leaders were momentarily stunned, but they did not flinch. They had faced hardships and challenges throughout history. This would be no different. They knew the cost of giving in to tyranny, and they were ready to fight, no matter the odds. "Bow before us or perish," the supreme overlord declared in a booming voice through his ship's speakers. The message was clear: submission or annihilation. But to his astonishment, the humans didn't bow. Instead, they began to rally their people, organizing a resistance they had never expected. The humans were not fighters by nature in the same way the elites were. They lacked the advanced technology and superior strength of the galactic elites. But they had something far more powerful: a burning determination to protect their home and a deep sense of unity. Across the globe, millions of people were rising up. Governments, armies, scientists, and civilians alike were coming together to find ways to fight back. It didn't take long for the galactic elites to realize that this was no ordinary resistance. Humans may have been technologically inferior, but they had an unyielding spirit and an intelligence that the elites had never encountered before. Their resourcefulness was unmatched, and they quickly adapted to the elites' tactics. Humanity wasn't relying on brute force. They were using their wits, makeshift weapons, guerrilla tactics, and an understanding of their environment made Earth's defenders a formidable foe. The galactic elites, who had expected to crush this primitive species with ease, were caught off guard by the humans' ability to adapt and counter their advanced weaponry. The supreme overlord's arrogance began to fade. He had underestimated the humans, and it was becoming clear that Earth's inhabitants were not easily intimidated. The elites had always prided themselves on their superiority, but now they were facing a challenge unlike any they had ever encountered. They were fighting against something far more dangerous than advanced technology: human resilience. As the resistance continued to grow, more humans began to uncover new ways to disrupt the elites' technology. Their military forces, though no match for the elites' firepower, were becoming more effective. Cyber attacks, sabotage, and surprise strikes were all part of the human strategy. And with each successful attack, their confidence grew. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their very existence, and nothing would stop them. The galactic elites, for the first time in their long history of domination, were facing real resistance. They had believed their victory was assured. But now they found themselves locked in a battle they could not easily win. The humans had proven that they were not to be underestimated, and the once unstoppable force of the elites was beginning to feel the weight of their miscalculation. This was only the beginning. The war between the galactic elites and humanity was far from over, and neither side would be the same when it was finally decided. The stage was set for a conflict that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. And as the humans rose, the galactic elites were forced to confront the fact that their reign of terror might be coming to an end. The battle begins. The galactic elites, stunned by humanity's unexpected resistance, decided that they could no longer rely on their conventional tactics. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were playing catch-up. Their initial attempts at asserting dominance had failed, but they were not about to admit defeat. Instead, they unleashed their full arsenal of weapons, determined to crush the human rebellion with overwhelming force. A full-scale invasion began. Elite warships descended upon Earth, their engines roaring as they unleashed destructive blasts across cities. The humans, though outmatched in firepower, refused to back down. In every corner of the world, small bands of fighters rallied together, holding off the invaders as best they could. The humans knew they had no hope of defeating the elites in direct combat, but they also understood the power of resistance, resilience in the face of certain destruction. Despite the elites' overwhelming technological advantage, humanity began to show them something they had never seen before: cleverness. Every time the elites struck, the humans found a way to fight back, using the planet's terrain, their own technology, and sheer ingenuity. A small group of soldiers in a remote part of the world used guerrilla tactics to hijack one of the elites' advanced drones. Another group hacked into a communications network, sending out misinformation to confuse the invaders. The Galactic elite's weapons were capable of decimating entire cities, but they could not predict the resilience of the humans. Even with their cities in ruins, the humans kept fighting, refusing to accept defeat. A pattern emerged. While the elites' attacks were devastating, they lacked the understanding of what it meant to be human. The humans would not simply roll over and die. They would fight for every inch of their world. The Supreme Overlord grew frustrated. His ships were powerful, and his forces were vast. But Earth was unlike any other world he had conquered. He could not understand the tenacity of the humans, nor could he grasp how they were able to adapt so quickly to his tactics. He sent wave after wave of reinforcements, but each attack only seemed to make the humans more determined. For every fleet the elites dispatched, humanity found a way to retaliate, striking at their weakest points. They discovered how to disable the elites' energy shields, how to sabotage their weapon systems, and even how to disrupt their communication networks. With every victory, the humans gained ground, and the elites' confidence began to waver. For the first time in history, the galactic elites found themselves in a fight they couldn't easily win. They had always believed that the destruction of a planet's military forces would be the end of the conflict. But Earth was different. The humans had no single centralized government, no unified military. They were fractured, but that didn't stop them. From every corner of the planet, resistance grew, and the elites realized that their enemies were not one single force, but a coalition of billions of individuals, all with the same goal: to protect their planet. As the battle raged on, the humans began to rally their allies. They'd broadcasted messages of unity, calling on every species they could reach to join them in their fight against the elites. The humans showed their resilience not only in their resistance, but in their ability to inspire others. It wasn't long before other oppressed races, many of whom had been subjugated by the galactic elites, began to stand with the humans. The galaxy was awakening to the idea that perhaps the elites were not as invincible as they once thought. In the skies above Earth, the humans' first significant victory was won. A human-led coalition fleet managed to take down one of the elites' most powerful warships, using a combination of strategy, cunning, and sheer determination. It was a victory born from the humans' refusal to accept defeat, and it sent a shockwave through the elites' ranks. They realized that if they didn't crush humanity soon, they would lose their grip on the galaxy. But the humans were only getting started. Every victory fueled their resolve, and with each new ally, their power grew. The elites, once confident and assured, now found themselves fighting a war on two fronts: against the humans on Earth and against the growing resistance movements in the galaxy. The tide was beginning to turn, and the once mighty galactic elites were starting to feel the weight of their hubris. The battle for Earth was far from over, but the humans had proven that they were not to be underestimated. They were not merely defending their planet. They were fighting for their very survival, and they would not stop until they had reclaimed their galaxy. A shift in power. The tide of war had begun to shift. The galactic elites, once so confident in their invincibility, now found themselves on the defensive. The humans, fueled by their desire to protect their home, were showing them that strength wasn't just about advanced technology. It was about spirit, unity, and the will to fight for survival. The elite's once unshakable empire was now in jeopardy. As more and more humans and allied species joined the fight, the galactic elites faced a dilemma. Their forces were stretched thin, unable to suppress the growing resistance movements both on Earth and across the galaxy. The humans were no longer just defending their planet. They were now pushing outwards, rallying oppressed species who had suffered under the elite's rule for centuries. A new alliance began to form, led by humans, and it was gaining momentum. The supreme overlord, who had once believed that the elite's domination was absolute, now found himself questioning everything. The humans were relentless. Their adaptability, their creativity, and their refusal to submit had thrown his carefully laid plans into disarray. What was once a simple invasion was now a galactic uprising, and it was gaining strength by the day. The humans had something the elites hadn't anticipated: an unyielding hope. They fought not only for survival, but for a future where they could live free from tyranny. With each victory, their power grew, and the other oppressed species of the galaxy began to rally behind them. The elite's military superiority was no longer enough to quell the rising tide of resistance. New alliances formed, and even former enemies of humanity were now joining the fight. In a desperate bid to regain control, the Supreme Overlord ordered a full-scale assault on Earth. His plan was to crush the humans once and for all, to demonstrate the elite's unchallenged power and restore the balance of fear. But the humans were ready. They had prepared for this moment, knowing that the final battle would determine the fate of not only their planet, but the entire galaxy. In an unexpected twist, the humans launched a counteroffensive unlike anything the elites had ever encountered. With the help of their newfound allies, they launched a devastating series of strikes against the elite's strongest fleets. For the first time in centuries, the elites felt the sting of defeat. Their ships, once thought invincible, were now falling one by one. Their forces were fractured, and their once unstoppable momentum came to a screeching halt. As the elite's military faltered, Earth's resistance grew stronger. Cities that had been destroyed were rebuilt, and humanity's spirit was reignited. They had proven that they were capable of defeating the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. The elites, in their arrogance, had underestimated humanity's ability to fight not just with weapons, but with heart. The Supreme Overlord, now facing the collapse of his empire, issued a final ultimatum: surrender or face total annihilation. But the humans were resolute. They had fought too hard, lost too much, and sacrificed everything. They would not surrender. The galaxy now stood at a crossroads. Either the elites would finally fall, or their empire would crush humanity once and for all. But even in their darkest hour, the galactic elites were starting to understand the true power of their adversaries. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for freedom. And that was a force the elites could never hope to defeat. The shift in power had begun, and the galactic elites, for the first time in their long history, were beginning to lose their grip on the galaxy. The humans had risen from nothing to challenge the supreme species, and now, the very future of the galaxy was in their hands. The New Order. The final battle raged above Earth, with the once unbeaten fleets of the galactic elites now in full retreat. The humans, alongside their new allies from across the galaxy, had struck a decisive blow. The elites' warships, once symbols of their dominance, were now falling in waves, unable to withstand the relentless assaults from the human-led coalition. The humans had proven that their resilience, their unity, and their ingenuity were forces the elites could never have anticipated. In the heart of the elites' capital ship, the Supreme Overlord watched helplessly as his empire crumbled. His most trusted generals, once confident in their victory, now begged him to surrender. They could see the writing on the wall. The galactic elites, the great empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, was on the verge of collapse. But the Supreme Overlord was not ready to admit defeat. He called for one last assault, a desperate attempt to regain control by deploying the elite's most powerful weapon. It was a last-ditch effort to break the humans' resolve and end their resistance once and for all. But it was clear that the elites were out of options, and their desperation only made them weaker. As the humans prepared for the final assault, they were joined by species from all corners of the galaxy, those who had been oppressed for centuries, who had lived in fear under the elites' rule. Together, they formed a united front, determined to bring an end to the reign of terror that had dominated their lives. The galactic elites were no longer the supreme species of the galaxy. They were the defeated. The final confrontation took place in the skies above Earth as the remaining elites' fleet made its last stand. The humans, fueled by their desire for freedom, fought with everything they had. The battle was fierce, and for a moment, it seemed as though the elites might still have a chance. But the tide had turned. The humans and their allies were no longer fighting for mere survival. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy. In an epic final strike, the humans and their coalition destroyed the Supreme Overlord's flagship, signaling the end of the elites' empire. As the massive ship exploded in a blinding flash of light, the galactic elites were left with nothing but ruin. Their power, their fleets, and their technology were now in the hands of those they had once oppressed. With the fall of the galactic elites came the birth of a new order. Humanity, once just another species on a small, insignificant planet, had risen to lead the galaxy. They had shown the universe that even the most powerful empire could be toppled by the spirit of resistance. The galaxy, once fractured and dominated by the elites, now stood united, with humans at the forefront of a new era of peace and cooperation. No longer would any species be forced to bow to tyranny. The humans had proven that strength was not found in weapons alone, but in the will to stand up for what was right. The fall of the galactic elites was not just a victory for humanity. It was a victory for freedom, for unity, and for every species in the galaxy who had suffered under the weight of oppression. The galaxy had been forever changed. The humans had shown that no matter how powerful a species might be, there was always a force greater than might, the will of those who fight for a better future. And with the rise of humanity came the dawn of a new age, an age where peace and equality would reign, and the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The humans had proven that they were not just survivors, they were conquerors. And with their new allies, they would rebuild the galaxy, ensuring that no one would ever again face the tyranny of the galactic elites. The future was theirs, and it was brighter than ever before.